Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the star of our show, Terry.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Music and Me. I am so happy that you're here because today we are traveling back to an era of big hair, bold colors, and even bolder music videos. An era where your TV wasn't just a TV, it was a portal into pop culture. Yes, we are diving into one of the biggest game changers in music history, MTV. The channel that didn't just shake things up, it rocked the entire industry with a fog machine, some synthesizers, and a whole lot of attitude. Now, I have to admit, growing up, I loved watching MTV. I would sit glued to the screen waiting for my favorite music videos like it was the most important appointment of my entire day. And honestly, it kind of was. That was my version of must see TV. Forget the news. I was trying to catch the newest Madonna video before anyone at school could spoil it for me. And eventually, yes, I got pulled into the world of MTV's reality shows. I mean, who didn't? The Real World had me absolutely hooked. I'd be sitting there thinking, wow, these people are wild, while also being secretly invested in every single bit of the drama. I loved that show so much. MTV knew exactly what they were doing. But before the drama, the dating shows, the beach houses, and whatever Jersey Shore was, MTV revolutionized the way we experienced music. It turned songs into visual stories, launched careers into the stratosphere, and shaped pop culture in ways we are still feeling today. It made music something you didn't just hear. You watched it, memorized it, acted it out, and sometimes embarrassed yourself trying to recreate in the mirror. But don't worry, this is a safe place and we've all been there. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk all about it: the rise of MTV, the iconic moments that made us gasp, cheer, or question reality, and how the channel transformed over the years into something, well, very different from the 24/7 music video dream it started as. So grab your remote or pretend remote and get ready because we're hitting rewind and heading straight back to where it all began. Let's rewind all the way back to August 1st, 1981, a day that would change music history forever. Picture it. Cable TV was still new, shoulder pads were enormous, and absolutely no one had any idea what was about to happen when a new little channel called music television suddenly appeared on their screens. And how did MTV choose to introduce itself to the world? Not with an explosion, not with a big celebrity cameo, not even with a jingle. Nope. It started with a rocket launching into space and a voice saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll." Honestly, that was iconic. Then came the very first music video ever played on MTV. "Video Killed the Radio Star" by the Bugles. I mean, talk about on the nose. It's like MTV looked the entire radio industry straight in the eyes and said, hey, you might want to sit down for this. And even though only a tiny group of people had access to MTV that first day, seriously, it was like having a secret music portal and only a few cool neighbors got it. It didn't take long before the channel exploded, though. Suddenly, people were calling their cable companies like, hello, how do I get MTV? This is urgent. And honestly, considering some of those early videos, they were absolutely urgent. MTV's whole idea was radical for the time: a channel that played music videos 24/7. Just music videos, all day, every day, no interruptions. No sitcom reruns, no commercials about vacuum cleaners, just pure pop, rock, new wave, and whatever else 1981 decided to throw at us. And it worked, because it wasn't just music, it was music with style, music with a storyline, music with a haircut you could copy and immediately regret. For the first time ever, artists didn't just sound cool, they looked cool. They could dance, act, strut, pose, and give the camera that dramatic stare like they were in a perfume commercial. MTV turned musicians into full-blown visual icons. Suddenly, the way you dressed, moved, and performed mattered just as much as your voice. In other words, MTV didn't just change the game, it took the game, added glitter, leather pants, fog, lasers, and said, let's see what happens now. Now, once MTV took off, the 1980s quickly turned into what I like to call the golden era of dramatic hair, glorious fashion, and music videos that deserved their own Oscars. Seriously, if you weren't around back then, you need to understand something. Music videos were events. You didn't just stumble across them, you waited for them like it was a national holiday. And when your favorite one finally came on, you dropped everything. Snacks, homework, phone calls, whatever. The music video took priority, and nobody owned MTV quite like Michael Jackson. When Thriller premiered, it wasn't just a music video, it was a film. And I talked about that one in a previous episode, and I can link that one in the show notes if you'd like to listen. That video had costumes, choreography, special effects, acting, and let's be honest, some of us are still slightly traumatized by those zombie eyes at the end. But we watched it anyway because it was the coolest thing ever shown on TV. MTV practically had to shut down traffic because the whole world tuned in. Then there was Madonna, who basically used MTV as her personal runway. With videos like a Virgin and Material Girl, she didn't just push boundaries, she invented new boundaries just so she could dramatically step over them. MTV plus Madonna was like peanut butter and jelly, if peanut butter and jelly could cause nationwide controversy. And of course, we can't forget Prince. When Dove's Cry hit MTV, the entire world collectively said, I don't know exactly what I'm watching, but I know it's fabulous. Prince brought style, mystery, and more purple than any one man should logically own. And we loved him for it. And speaking of Prince, I also did a Prince episode, and I can link that one in the show notes if you'd like to listen to that one. We also got Duran Duran, serving cinematic adventures like they were working with a Hollywood director on their lunch break. Rio had them dancing on yachts, wearing suits on beaches, and convincing all of us that we could live a glamorous life on a boat, even though most of us could barely afford a pool float. And then there were the VJs, the video jockeys. These were the faces of MTV, the cool kids you wished you could hang out with. They were like radio hosts, but hotter, more stylish, and constantly surrounded by celebrities. I mean, back in the day, I wanted to be a VJ. I thought they were so cool. They introduced videos, gave us music news, and made us feel like we were part of a much cooler friend group than we actually are. This era was magic. It was flashy, bold, experimental, and weird in the best possible way. MTV didn't just play music videos, it created superstars. It shaped our fashion, our slang, our mood boards before mood boards were a thing. And for the first time ever, music wasn't just something you listened to. It was something you watched, followed, analyzed, and occasionally tried to imitate, often with varying degrees of success. If you ever tried to moonwalk in socks on a tile floor, you know the struggle. That was the golden age, and MTV was the glitter-covered crown on top of it. So after MTV had basically turned every living room into a mini music video theater, the channel said, you know what? Let's not stop there. Let's take over everything. And honestly, they did. MTV didn't just play music videos anymore. It started shaping the entire culture around them. If the golden era was MTV's big party, this next phase was the after party where things got wild, experimental, and surprisingly educational. Yes, really. One of the biggest new additions was MTV News, led by the legendary Kurt Loder, the man who somehow made every story sound both urgent and extremely cool. You'd be sitting there in your pajamas at 4 p.m., and suddenly Kurt Loder would appear like breaking news in the music world. And boom, you were locked in. If Kurt said it mattered, it mattered. Then came something that still lives rent-free in so many of our hearts, MTV Unplugged. This was the series where the biggest artists in the world stripped their songs down to raw, acoustic performances. No electric guitars, no giant lasers, no dancers popping out of trapdoors, just pure music. We got legendary unplugged moments from artists like Nirvana, giving us one of the most haunting and beautiful live albums ever recorded. Mariah Carey, proving that she could hit those whistle notes with nothing but a microphone and pure vocal power, which I have that album. Eric Clapton, whose unplugged version of Layla somehow became just as iconic as the original. It showed us what artists could do without all the production. And honestly, some of those moments were better than any music video. I agree. And then there was Yo, MTV Raps. If you were around in the late 80s and 90s, this show was everything. It introduced hip hop to mainstream audiences in a way the world had never seen. Artists like Run DMC, Public Enemy, NWA, and Queen Latifah weren't just on the radio anymore. They were right there on your TV. Yo MTV Raps didn't just influence the culture, it became the culture. It helped bring rap into homes across America, shaping fashion, language, and an entire generation of music lovers. If you ever wore an oversized jacket or tried to learn how to beatbox, you can probably blame the show. Fashion, MTV had a hand in it. Slang, MTV had a hand in that too. Half the posters people stuck on their bedroom walls, yep, MTV strikes again. It didn't matter if you were into pop, rock, hip hop, or something in between. MTV was where the culture lived, breathed, and occasionally wore very questionable outfits. By this point, MTV wasn't just a channel, it was a movement, a vibe, a whole lifestyle. It shaped the way we expressed ourselves, what we listened to, how we dressed, and what we thought was cool. MTV wasn't just reflecting youth culture, it was creating it. All right, now we've arrived at the phase of MTV's life that can only be described as, wait, are we still a music channel? Because somewhere in the late 90s and early 2000s, MTV looked at music videos, looked at the rising chaos of reality TV, and said, you know what? Let's stir the pot. Let's create drama. Let's cause absolute emotional whiplash, and let's make a must-see TV. And so began the era where MTV transformed from the home of iconic music videos into a full-blown reality entertainment empire. One of the earliest and biggest turning points, The Real World. This show was the blueprint, the OG, the grandfather of reality TV as we know it. It was 7 strangers, 1 house, lots of questionable choices, and the tagline we can all quote, to find out what happens when people stop being polite and start getting real. Let me tell you, they got real, and I watched it. I was hooked. I was invested. I had opinions, sometimes strong ones. The Real World gave us drama, friendships, conflicts, romance, and moments we still remember years later. Then MTV said, well, that worked, so what else can we do? Enter the early 2000s, TRL, Total Request Live. TRL was chaos in the best possible way. You had fans screaming in Times Square, celebrities waving from windows, Carson Daly trying to keep everything under control, and a daily countdown where you could not escape boy bands even if you tried. This was the era when Britney, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, and Christina Aguilera were basically running the world through one glass window in New York City. And then came the wave of reality shows that MTV somehow made both addictive and culturally defining. The Osbournes, the show that finally explained why Ozzy always looked confused. Laguna Beach, the show that convinced us high schoolers apparently lived like movie stars. The Hills, the show where dramatic pauses became an art form. Jersey Shore, the show that introduced us to GTL, fist pumping, and the concept of laundry as a lifestyle. Cribs, where celebrities gave tours of their mansions and said, this is where the magic happens, so often it became a national catchphrase. My Super Sweet 16, where teenagers had parties bigger than most people's weddings. Suddenly, MTV wasn't just shaping music culture, it was shaping reality TV itself. Music videos still existed, but they were slowly pushed into the background like that one friend who keeps saying, "Hey guys, I'm still here," while everyone else is focused on the drama happening in the kitchen. Some people loved the new MTV, some people missed the old MTV, and some people were just trying to figure out how we all got emotionally attached to a group of strangers living on the beach. But no matter where you landed, one thing was undeniable. This new MTV was entertaining. Chaotic? Yes. Dramatic? Absolutely. Unforgettable? Always. So now we've made it all the way to MTV today. And let's be honest, if you turned on MTV expecting to see music videos now, you'd probably think you clicked on the wrong channel, or the wrong decade, or the wrong universe. Because somewhere along the way, MTV slowly transitioned from a music video powerhouse into, well, a reality TV megaplex. Music videos, they're mostly online now, living their best lives on YouTube where they get billions of views and occasionally start dance challenges that none of us can keep up with. But MTV today, it's the home of shows, marathons, and more reality reruns than anyone truly asked for. And yet, it still has this strong nostalgia value because we all remember what it used to be. We remember the impact, the magic, the anticipation of watching for your favorite video to come on and then immediately calling your friends like, "It's on, turn on the TV now." One thing MTV still hangs on to, the MTV Video Music Awards, the VMAs. Love it or hate it, chaotic or legendary, the VMAs are still one of the biggest nights in music every year. We still tune in for the performances, the outfits, the moments that break the internet, and occasionally someone climbing a stage prop for no particular reason. I mean, every year there's always something. And something interesting happened over time. Once MTV mostly let go of music videos, the internet picked up the torch. YouTube, streaming platforms, TikTok, Instagram, all of them became the new MTV. Except now, music videos aren't just on your TV. They're everywhere. On your phone, at your job, in your bed at 1 a.m. when you swore you'd go to sleep hours ago. Trust me, we've all been there. So while MTV today might not look like the MTV we grew up with, the legacy is massive. It invented the idea of the music video as an art form. It turned musicians into visual storytellers. It shaped pop culture, fashion, memes, and more than a few questionable hairstyles. It changed how we discover music, how we watch it, and honestly, how we talk about artists today. MTV may have grown up, moved on, and gotten really into reality shows, but the world we live in now, one filled with music videos at our fingertips, viral performances, and visuals that instantly define an era, that all traces back to MTV. And honestly, even if the channel never goes back to what it once was, its influence will always be humming in the background like your favorite throwback playlist. As we wrap up today's episode, I can't help but smile thinking about how big a role MTV played in so many of our lives. It wasn't just a channel, it was a whole experience. It shaped childhoods, teenage years, fashion choices we may or may not regret, and in my case, many hours sitting in front of the TV waiting for a music video like my life depended on it. I mean, looking back, it's wild to think that there was a time when we had to sit and wait for our favorite video to play. No skipping, no rewinding, no liking or subscribing. Just patience, hope, and maybe a bowl of cereal. And then, boom, the video finally came on, and it felt like winning the lottery. And then, as MTV changed, we changed with it. Maybe you were like me and got hooked on the real world drama. Maybe you lived for TRL after school. Maybe you stayed up watching MTV Cribs, imagining your future mansion complete with a questionable indoor fountain. Or maybe you jumped into the chaos of Jersey Shore and said, "Okay, I don't fully understand what's happening, but I'm entertained." Whatever your MTV era was, it became a part of your soundtrack. Not just the music, but the moments around it. And that's the beautiful thing about MTV's story. It reminds us how culture evolves, how trends shift, and how one channel changed everything from the way artists perform to the way we discover new songs. Even if MTV today is a very different place, its influence is everywhere. Every viral music video, every award show moment, every trending sound, every artist who breaks the internet, all of that is part of MTV's legacy. So as we close this episode, I just want to say, here's to the channel that taught us to dream bigger, dress bolder, dance harder, and see music not just as sound, but as a full-blown experience. Thank you all for joining me today and taking this nostalgic trip through the rise, fall, and wild evolution of MTV. And be sure to tune in next time, because my next episode is a deep dive song analysis of one of my all-time favorites, Brave by Sarah Bareilles. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. Until then, keep listening, keep loving music, and maybe go rewatch one of your favorite old videos, just for the memories. Peace out, everyone. This has been the Music and Me podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a beat.